I love the title of the book, The Happiness Recipe. So as a writer myself and an author, what was it like for you to write the book, and what did you hope that it would do for readers?
So interestingly, I joined a writer's retreat in June of 2020 with the notion that I would begin to collect my thoughts and sort of frameworks around coaching that I had thought I would be doing by going out in person and talking with people, but then pandemic, right? And so my intention actually in joining that retreat was not to write a book. It was just to have some concentrated time where I could write. And as I started writing, I realized, oh, this is actually sort of a recipe for how to get from point A to point B. And thus the book was born. So I did not, like I say, I accidentally wrote a book sometimes. That's a little bit of an overstatement, right? Because you know the process, you've written a book. I mean, there's a lot that goes in, not just to the writing, but the post sort of production of a book. Once I figured out I was writing a book, obviously a lot of effort and energy went into it. But initially it was just about, again, capturing kind of my favorite tools, some of what I had learned over the course of my career and life, and figuring out how to kind of bottle that up and share it with people in a way that was actionable.
You had an amazing story at the beginning of the book about your daughter and giving her a bath and what you were doing at the same time, which resonated so much with me as a working mom. So I would love if you wouldn't mind sharing that story and how that moment was really so pivotal for you.
Yeah. So, I mean, this was a moment that happened about 16 years ago. That same toddler that was in the tub is graduating from high school this weekend. So, but I found myself, let's call it a Tuesday night, sitting on the floor of the bathroom. And my husband was at the time working in counterterrorism, and he had been called into work because something had blown up. And so I was on kid duty, but I was also a practicing attorney, and we were preparing for an upcoming, and I don't remember if it was deposition or trial, but in the height of preparation. And so I had a call that evening with one of our experts to get them ready for their upcoming testimony, and found myself with my toddler daughter in the tub and the cordless phone, because this was 16 years ago, we didn't have cell phones or wireless headphones or any fun stuff like that. So cordless phone clipped to the back of my pants, headphones in my ears, toilet seat cover with the notebook on top of the toilet seat cover, papers everywhere. And I'm supervising her in the bath and trying to really actively participate in this conversation with our experts. And sort of as that wrapped up, I had two thoughts in quick succession. The first thought was, who says you can't do it all? Like, I'm here, I'm killing it. I'm having some good success at work. I'm on partnership track. I'm getting good reviews. Like, I'm being a good lawyer. And I'm here with my daughter, and I'm able to put her to bed, and I'm able to be a present mom and all of those things. And then the second thought was, and I'm exhausted, and this might not be sustainable. And actually more than that, I'm not sure that even though I'm good at being a lawyer, even though I have the skills to do this, that this is really making me happy. Mm-hmm. That this is really what I'm meant to do or what I should be prioritizing. So yeah, that's that bathtub moment that I talked about in my book. And I think it's one that resonates with a lot of people, because we've all, especially working parents, but not just working parents, have done some version of that, sort of trying to keep your fingers in all the holes lest something explode.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you have a term in your book called priority aligned living.
Yes.
Can you describe what that is? And is that something you made up, and where did it come from, and what does it mean to you?
So that I know of, I made it up, but often multiple people have the same thought. So I haven't trademarked it or anything. But it's this notion that if we can get clear on what is most important to us in this season of our lives and do more of that and less of the rest, that's sort of how we maximize our happiness recipe. So it's about how do we align ourselves, our beliefs, our actions with those priorities and live in a way that honors that. And I think when we can do that, we really decrease. I have a friend who calls it we take the resistance out of the hustle, the friction out of the hustle. I don't love the word hustle, but the notion is we sort of decrease the opportunities for sort of tension and friction because we're living in a way that's aligned. We're on the track, or we're in the river, however you want to think about that flowy or place.
Mm-hmm. Plus, I think it would help you not be in comparison as much too, because 100%. You're focused on the things that are important to you and not anyone else. And we all have different priorities and values that we're aligned with and focused on.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of, that's where the notion of, or why I picked the idea of recipe, right? It's, what's going to work for your palate, for your experience, for your life. You might make your chocolate chip cookies one way and I might make them another way, and they might both be delicious, but we're going to prefer our own chocolate chip cookie, right? So why are we hung up on like, let's make this particular way is how we have to live in order to be happy? No, the reality is it's infinitely and intimately personal. And so we've got to leave ourselves room to, just as you say, to sort of be in our personal recipe and out.
So you have shared a ton of stories in your book that I would say very vulnerable and very much relatable to me as a working mom, but any working parent I think could also relate to some of this. Can you talk about any of those and how they changed you?
So I've had the gift of being raised by two parents. My dad was a Lutheran pastor and my mom was, for the bulk of her career, she actually went to law school when I was in preschool, kindergarten. So for everything after that, she worked as an in-house attorney at a very large company. And the true gift that I think that they gave me is that they were very intentional about how they lived, which allowed me to bring a level of intentionality to how I live, or demonstrated what happens when you do that, like the benefit of doing that. Mm-hmm. And I would love to say that I like walked out of the house at 17 when I went to college, like ready to live intentionally. I did not.
You would be a unique person if you had.
Yes. And I have to keep reminding myself, like I said, as I have a high school senior, I'm like, it's okay. She's like so close to where she needs to be. And I'm super proud of her. But like, I also recognize that there's a lot of growing still to happen because I've experienced it. So, just as an example, like I told you about that bathtub moment, and I'd love to say that I woke up in that moment and sort of reallocated my priorities and got clear right away. But the reality is a number of things happened after that sort of were like the 2x4 of like, pay attention, Becky, something needs to change. And when I finally got clear that season of my life, I really wanted to be a mom first season. And by that, I didn't mean stop working outside the home. What I meant was where I could prioritize my family, I wanted to prioritize them. And so I made a career shift at that point, and I took myself off partnership track and I went to work at a different law firm in a kind of hybrid admin legal role that gave me a lot more time control, which is what I felt I needed in order to execute on that priority. And I had to call my mom, who, just to refresh your recollection, I just told you went to law school when I was in kindergarten. So in the late 70s, early 80s, at a time where there weren't a lot of women in the law. And so I really felt like I think she was a trailblazer for, women in that profession. And here I had to go and tell her, like, I'm taking a step off of this track, off of the trail you blazed for me, and I'm going to put family first. And it felt like, sort of scary to tell her that, because we had been through with her career a moment that I talk about in my book where she had made clear that she was putting career first. And so I really was like scared to have this conversation. Like, I'm choosing a different priority than you, and like, I'm sorry. And her response, which is not surprising in hindsight, but was surprising at the time, was, you're just picking what's most important to you. We couldn't be more proud. Right? And so that was a big aha to me, that it's not what, it's that I am being true to what matters to me. I could have continued to exist in that space of tension, prioritizing my career and feeling bad about it. I chose not to. And she was proud of me resolving that tension for myself. So, that's sort of a weave together of several stories in the book, but big, important change to how I was living, and has really impacted the choices that I have made since that point, almost 16 years ago. I've refined how I would have approached that decision. I think often about what would it look like to go back and coach that young woman who was sitting on the bathroom floor. And I wonder if, what the path would have looked like. But that said, everything happens for a reason, and this path has led me to where I am today, and I'm happy to be where I am today doing the work that I'm doing.
Do you have advice or a tip that you could share with the listeners on what you have done to be visible?
So one of the things that was really important in my process of priority aligned living that relates to visibility is something in the book that I call priority PR. And what I really mean is being willing to share with people outside of you in all the places what your top priority is for that season. So when I made that transition from practicing lawyer to law firm administrator, I was very clear when I got hired in that new job that family was a priority for me. That clarity created opportunity for me to continue to live in a priority aligned way. If I held that priority but didn't share it with anybody, I wouldn't be positioning myself to have that priority supported by the systems and the people around me. So the tip I would give you is once you have clarity on what matters most to you in this season, don't be shy about telling people what it is.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I think even people who maybe want a different role, but don't tell anybody that they want that role or that they're interested in that role, how are you ever going to be considered for it if no one knows? You know, so there's a lot of ways that you just need to talk about what's important to you or what you care about or what you want.
Yeah. And I think what I've started to use as like a clue to myself that the conversation needs to happen is the more discomfort I have around having it, the more likely it is that that is a place that I actually need to go and push through the discomfort and have the conversation.
Yes, I have that.